Whenever a new season drops on Call of Duty Mobile, there's usually a couple things that we can go and expect, whether or not it's new content, or just overall general improvements to the game graphically, or just, movement-wise. But a theme that's really relevant for this video is both weapon buffs as well as weapon nerfs. And with Season 3 for Call of Duty Mobile just dropping a couple days ago, weapon nerfs as well as weapon buffs was a pretty prominent thing within the patch notes. And it's kind of funny because I even made like a top 10 best weapons list video all the way back in October when COD Mobile first dropped. And this list that I'm going to be making right now is definitely going to be a lot more different than compared to the first ever one that I made all the way back in October. So with that said, if you guys do enjoy this video, smacking a like on it would be awesome, as well as if you guys are new, that'd be cool if you guys could go and subscribe for future COD Mobile videos. And for coming in at the number 10 spot here, we have the M4. Now, I just feel like everything about the M4 is just good. It's not great, it's not bad, it's just good. It can be the range aspect of it, it's good at close, mid, and then long range. The damage on it is good, the recoil on it is good, just anything too crazy. So it definitely deserves this number 10 spot. It's a lot better than the current selection that we have for shotguns in this game, as well as just some of the LMGs, but the M4, always a reliable weapon for you to fall back on. But for the M4 here, I'm actually kind of okay with the placement. Coming in at the number 9 spot here, we have the AK-117. Now, I feel like so many people are just going to be freaking out in the comment section, but let me kind of explain why the AK-117 is at the number 9 spot here. So don't get me wrong, it has a really fast firing rate, and it is the fastest firing rate out of all assault rifles for COD Mobile. The damage is okay, but back in Season 2, it was fine to have an okay damage with the AK-117 because the recoil with the gun was pretty much non-existent. But going and hopping into Season 3 here, the recoil has definitely changed. It's just that the whole thing isn't a really good mixture at all, because at least they should have maybe increased the damage a little bit, but by going in, changing the recoil, they just practically made the weapon not as good as it once was. For the number 8 spot here, we have the BK. Now let me kind of explain everything here. So when it comes to the firing rate on it, it's definitely one of the faster types of weapons that you would even find on this list, as well as one of the fastest on COD Mobile in general. The firing rate is just somewhere in between the AK-117 and then the ASM-10, but just the damage that you can go and do with this, because they did go and buff up the BK a little bit, the damage just makes this weapon an absolute monster. The only true drawback is just the recoil, because it can be a little bit inconsistent at times, but other than that, the damage is pretty good. And if you are able to go and control the recoil, I could see the BK being an absolute monster for Season 3. For the number 7 spot here, we have the ASM-10, and it's kind of weird to go and say this weapon, especially when I'm ranking it higher than the AK-117, but let me explain. So I feel like the ASM-10 was exactly like the AK-117 from Season 2. Like, don't get me wrong, it's not like it's on the same level in terms of the firing rate, but it's just everything else. The recoil is super nice on it, the damage, and I would probably argue that the damage is more significant with the ASM-10 rather than the AK-117, but one of the main necessities with this gun is that you have to have a red dot on it. The bare iron sights on it is just absolutely atrocious. So whether or not you want to go and slap a red dot or a tactical scope, you just need any other scope rather than just the traditional iron sights. For the number 6 spot here, we have the AKS. Now, there's just so many good things about this weapon. The fast firing rate that you have with it, the good amount of bullets that you have for the clip size, which is definitely needed because the damage isn't really the greatest with this, because I feel like if this weapon had just an amazing amount of damage, I could even see this being like at the number 2 spot or even at the number 1 spot. There's pretty much no recoil whenever you're going and using the AKS in like a close range engagement with another enemy, but then the moment you find yourself in a mid to long range, especially at long range, it can be a little bit more difficult, but mid range, it can be definitely a doable thing. And it's kind of funny because I think I did make another video for the season 2 best weapons, and I think the AKS might have been even at that number 2 spot. So it's weird how on this list it's at the number 6 spot, but the AKS will always have a special place in my heart here. For the number 5 spot here, we have the LK, which is actually really awesome to go in here because there was in the patch notes a whole big listing about how they went and tweaked the LK a little bit, and at first I was a little bit skeptical because in both season 1 and then season 2, the LK was just another random weapon, you know, just a weapon that I personally didn't really use that much, as well as probably a lot of other COD Mobile users. But for season 3 here, the LK is actually pretty good. Like some of the things that I was able to go and just get based off all the gameplay that I had with it for season 3 so far was just the firing rate is pretty phenomenal with it. It has a really decent clip size, especially if you go and are running extended mag on it. The damage is pretty solid, as well as just overall the versatility with the weapon is pretty incredible. So if you guys have not already tried out the LK, I would really recommend you to go and do so, because for right now, at least in season 3, it's a pretty decent weapon, and when I was using it, I was just having an absolute blast. For the number 4 spot here, we have the universally hated S36. Yes, so many people just hate the S36 spam, but hey man, it has to go in somewhere on this list, and I'm placing it at the number 4 spot. Just the clip size is extremely nutty. Just people spamming this, holding down the trigger, and especially if you go and are in a game mode, like the new game mode that just came out for season 3, the ultra rapid fire, in which you have unlimited ammo. Yeah man, the S36 can just be an absolute savage. The damage is pretty solid on it, as well as the recoil isn't that bad considering that it is an LMG. For the number 3 spot here, we have the DLQ-33. Now, I am not the greatest sniper in this game by any means, and I don't even use snipers that often, but when I do, the DLQ-33 is always the most reliable, especially when I made that video in which I had you guys, and this was based out of like 35,000 votes. The DLQ-33 pretty much won by a landslide. It's just DLQ-33 overall a really solid sniper, whether or not you're going for damage. I feel like you can hit one shots easier, especially if you're aiming for like the torso, while on other weapons like the Arctic 50, it might not give you that one shot, one kill. But the DLQ-33 always my go-to sniper. And oh dang, wow, we're really close to the end here. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, coming in at the number 2 spot here, we have the MSMC. Now, if you were like me and you looked at the patch notes for the very first time, you would have seen everything that got nerfed with the MSMC here. Like the clip size itself got nerfed, the recoil on it got nerfed, just so many nerfs with the MSMC here, but it wasn't really that noticeable. Like, you can still slap an extended mag on the MSMC and get around 33 bullets if I'm not mistaken, which is a really generous clip size still, because you can still go and get those multi-kills. Just the firing rate is still amazing with it. The damage with the MSMC is still just on a whole nother level out there. The versatility with the weapon is amazing. Just MSMC, even though if you looked at the patch notes and you were a little bit worried that this weapon was gonna be straight up trash now, don't you worry, season 3, it's still good. Finally, for the number 1 spot here, I have to give it to the Type 25, man. It's just the Type 25 is the best overall weapon currently in Call of Duty Mobile. Whether or not you find yourself in a close range engagement, just the fast firing rate that you have with it, as well as the damage can just go and put in work. If you're ever finding yourself in a mid range engagement, the recoil can still have your back and the damage is still pretty strong. It's just the moment you find yourself in a little bit longer of a way distance, that's where it can be a little bit iffy. But if you're going and comparing it with the MSMC, when it comes to long range engagements, I would rather have the Type 25, and that's why I feel like the Type 25 is above the MSMC here when it comes to the best weapons currently in Season 3 for COD Mobile. But ladies and gentlemen, that is gonna go and conclude today's video. Thank you guys so very much for tuning in and watching. Feel free to let me know in the comment section down below what your top 10 list is, or at least give me like a top 5 or a top 3. But with that said, my name is Parker. Hopefully you guys are having wonderful and valuable studies. I certainly am. And I guess I'll talk to you guys within the next video.